Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Faheem, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Lightning Strike. Another beautiful day in the Chicagoland area, and we are really looking forward to seeing you at our first fundraising dinner on the 29th. Keep that on your calendar. Please mark it down. It's going to be at the Bolingbrook Community Center on 201 Canterbury Lane in Bolingbrook, 6:30 in the evening. And if you would like to come, please do let me know. You can send us a text at 630-345-0202, or you can send us an email at TLS for the Lightning Strike, TLS820am at gmail.com. And we'll share all the details with you. I am posting it on our social media on Facebook and other places also. So keep an eye on for it. We're expecting about maybe 150, 200 people to show up. And it will be nice to see you all in person, not just on the radio or on Facebook, on Zoom and other places that we do, but and you get to meet with us. So that is the important news of the day today. If you want to join the conversation here on the radio today, the number to call in is 773-763 WCPT or 773-763-9278. So please mark those numbers down. After the show, if you want to get in touch with us, again, you can email us or you can call us on our off-show line, which is 312-TLS-8281. So everything is TLS. And you can follow us on our socials also. On Facebook, again, facebook.com, it is /TLS Radio. On YouTube, we post all of these videos. And we go live on every Sunday morning from 8 to 10. Okay, coming back to today's show. We got Andrew Herrera joining us this morning. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, everybody.
And also we have got Mike Patino and Chris Hilbert. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Okay, thank you. And let's get the show rolling with what I want to say every Sunday morning with my monologue. It's kind of like what's his name used to do, who got kicked out of CBS, ABC, one of those things.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Okay, like after 26 years, Barry Weiss comes in and says, "Why are you criticizing my president?" Okay, so David Letterman was forced to quit, and so does a lot of other people in media are getting sick and tired of this system, folks. Okay, and that's why independent media matters so much. And thank you to WCPT for allowing us to have a voice on the air. Today, I want to talk about immigration and civil liberties. Where should America draw the line? So that is what we want to talk about. And you can always go and subscribe to my Substack also. All of these monologues are posted on my Substack as articles. And that is TLS820 host at Substack. Okay. So every generation, folks, is tested by a single question. Not how rich we are, not how powerful we are, not how loudly we wave the flag, but whether we can protect our security without surrendering our principles. That is the immigration debate before us today. Let's begin with something that should not be controversial, okay? Every sovereign nation has both the right and the responsibility to secure its borders. Every country gets to decide who enters, who stays, and under what conditions. America is no different. Border security is not racism, folks. Enforcing immigration law is not inherently un-American, but neither is defending the Constitution. And that is where the rub is. Our founders understood something we seem to forget whenever fear takes over political conversation. Think about it. The Constitution was not written to protect popular people. It was written to protect everyone's right when those rights are inconvenient, especially. Because if the government can ignore due process for one group today, it can ignore due process for another group tomorrow. If you want to join the conversation, please feel free to text, call in 773-763-9278. So history has taught us that lesson again and again, folks. If the government can ignore due process for one group today, it can ignore due process for another group tomorrow. We interned Japanese Americans. We targeted Muslim Americans after 9/11. Or, we blacklisted Americans during the Red Scare. Every generation looks back and asks, how could they have allowed that to happen? The better question is this: what are we allowing to happen today? There is no shortage of political rhetoric on immigration. One side says, deport everyone. The other says, enforcement itself is the problem. Neither slogan solves the challenge. Americans deserve secure borders. No question about it. They also deserve honest answers. Who should be deported? Violent criminals? Absolutely. Human traffickers? Without question. Gang members who prey on our communities? Most of the Congress people, yeah, remove them because they owe allegiance to another foreign country, right? But what about the mother who has lived here for 20 years, pays taxes, owns a home, has children who are American citizens, and has never committed a crime? What about the dreamer who graduated from an American high school, speaks fluent English, serves in the military, and knows no other country? Should every case be treated exactly the same? Justice has never worked that way, especially American justice. Okay, America has always been strongest when we remembered that laws require judgment, not just enforcement. We should also ask another uncomfortable question: why do politicians return to immigration every election cycle, yet somehow never solve it? Republicans have controlled Congress, Democrats have controlled Congress. Both parties have held the White House. Yet, decades later, the border remains broken. Perhaps immigration is more valuable as a political weapon, folks, than as a problem to solve. Fear mobilizes voters. Solutions require compromise. And compromise doesn't always fit neatly into a 30-second campaign advertisement, right? Meanwhile, real families live with uncertainty and fear. Communities struggle to meet growing demands. Employers face labor shortages. Border agents face impossible workloads. And us, the taxpayers, are footing the bill. Everyone agrees the system is broken. No one agrees on how to fix it. America does not have to choose between security and liberty. We are capable of both. We can strengthen our borders while protecting constitutional rights. We can enforce the law without abandoning due process. We can remove dangerous criminals while recognizing the humanity of families who have spent decades contributing to our communities. That is not weakness, that is. The Constitution is not a fair weather document. It does not disappear when politics become difficult. It is tested precisely when emotions run highest. This debate is about far more than immigration. It is about what kind of country we choose to become, right? Will America remain a nation of laws? Will it remain a nation of liberty? Can it still be both? Those are not democratic questions. Those are not Republican questions. those are American questions. Because once the government acquires extraordinary power over one group of people, history tells us it rarely stops there. The line we draw today may determine the freedoms we still enjoy tomorrow. I'm Mohammed Faheem, and that is the lightning strike for today, July the 19th, and where we ask the questions, whether we ask the questions is going to challenge the narrative. And that is what we want to do today. And I want to welcome my panel back into the conversation. Good morning, folks. Need your input on these.
Morning. This means a lot to me because my father was born in Mexico City. My grandfather came over to this country when my father was only 5 years old. And they moved right into Mundelein, Illinois, by the way. And so it was a lot easier back then. I mean, I'm sure it's a whole different demographic now, but still, I mean, like you said, over and over again, the politicians seem to use it as a weapon, and they never come up with any solutions that work. There's got to be solutions that work. It worked back when my grandfather came over and my father came over. Why can't they make it work now? That baffles me.
So I think a really important thing to remember here, it's funny, like my grandfather also, he came over here in the 60s, and he came undocumented until he was an orphan, and he didn't realize, and he's educated through the third grade, a formal education, brilliant man though, and uh, and so he didn't realize that he was a U.S. citizen by merit of having been born in Texas until his cousins are like, "What are you doing working undocumented here? Like you're a citizen, knucklehead." Uh, and so we got lucky in that way. But it really shows it's just like by accidents of fate. He was born on one side of the river, and even though he grew up on the other side, because he was orphaned when he was 8, um, that's what entitled our whole family to not have to go through all that hardship. Um, and I would just say though that it's like I think people miss the fact that this country was founded without any immigration policies. And it was actually founded on the idea it's a market-based country, and it's the first one, right? Because this country was founded on genocide, right? And so the country was founded with the idea that it's an empty place, right? It's a place only of promise because we're clearing out the Native Americans as we were expanding and creating the country. And so because of that, the whole thing is premised on immigration. And the first time we had real immigration policies was the Chinese Exclusion Act, right? And so immigration policies have always been racist. And then in the 20s, they were also racist. They were all about against Eastern Europeans. And so every time we have an immigration policy, it is just a racial policy. Because even if you look at NAFTA, right, and NAFTA is the thing that caused Mexican immigration to come into the country. NAFTA, a free trade agreement is premised on three things: free trade of information, free trade of goods and services, and free trade of free movement of people, right? And so we have a free trade agreement, and we did two of the three things, and we destroyed the economy in southern Mexico by putting a bunch of cheap corn into there, and that we knew it was going to force those people to move to the market where there was jobs, but then we criminalized all of them as they crossed the border. And so, you look at that, and then, we can't have it both ways. And at the end of the day, I think the big thing is you have to look at who's profiting. And nobody wants to have their communities broken. People in southern Mexico didn't want to move to the United States. They didn't want this better life. We destroyed their life, and they went to the place where they could still live. And then we said, oh, well, we've got a thing here that you're taking away from us. But what really happened is billionaires, they moved the market around so they could break the leverage that workers had, and they could extract more from us. And they extracted more from the American workers, and they extracted more from the Mexican workers, and they pitted us against each other. And the entire policy, the entire debate that we're having now is really about that, is really about, can these billionaires get away with breaking the power of the workers and of these communities? And the best way to break the power of workers is to scatter them, because then they can't have community, they can't come together, they don't trust each other, and it's impossible to build, or much more difficult to build solidarity.
And have us fighting each other, okay?
Right.
And that is something that we have to be very cognizant, folks. what is the end game? Who benefits from all of these so-called truth unsocial messages? I mean, or untruth social messages from our president. I mean, this guy is really up all night, I guess, doing this crap on social media, or maybe they have taken his phone away from him and someone else is posting those messages, because I'm pretty sure is what is happening.
Wait, did you guys see the recent news about Truth Social? Their new
Yeah,
feature?
they want to make money off of the damn thing over there. Okay, I'm so sorry, folks, but look at the grift our president is doing. So if you want to have special access to upcoming news on Truth Social, yeah, you got to become a subscriber, okay, a paid subscriber.
Oh, it's even worse. They're giving an API, so like back-end access to Wall Street firms for market moving information. So they're literally saying when the president has a tweet that's going to move the market, that the Wall Street firms get to see it first if they pay
Yep,
a shitload of money. And so they're literally just
Of course.
stealing. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable how corrupt that is.
I mean, we have never had such a corrupt administration in the history of the country. I don't think any other country has had such a corrupt administration. Let me bring Chris in. Chris, so what do you think with the immigration debate and our corrupt president and his corrupt presidency, Chris? And by the
Uh,
way, we do have Demi joining us. She is waiting in the green room. We'll bring her in just a couple of minutes. But Chris, go ahead.
on the immigration, my history is that my great grandparents came around the early 1900s, and as far as I know, nobody had any problems. But I feel real uh, empathy for those that are having to struggle. And I just hate what the Republicans have been doing for the last 40 years. They have been campaigning on hate of the immigrants, especially if you're non-white and non-male. And I just find that so reprehensible. And I could be on a soapbox for 20 minutes on that because it's just so annoying. I was raised, people are people. It doesn't matter their color, doesn't matter their religion, doesn't matter whether they're male or female or somewhere in between or something new. It doesn't matter. If they're in front of you and they have the basic human structure, they're a human. Just treat them as a human. And all these people running around the entire planet, and a lot of them here in the United States, 50% apparently, since they voted for Trump, they
Okay.
they want to put people in boxes, and it's like, oh well, you're not as white as me, so you belong in this box, and you're even darker than the last one, so you in this one, and you're slightly more yellow or red than these ones over here, and everybody's in a little box, and I hate all of them because you're
See,
not white.
Mohammed, you had to kick the hornet's nest. You had to kick it. We're going to go into
Well,
Demi's time.
good morning, Demi. And Demi is joining us on our District Watch segment, folks, which starts at 8:30. And Demi, thank you so much for joining us early. And District Watch is a segment that we started a couple of months back, almost 2 or 3 months back now. And Chris is producing that segment for us. This is to have people who have run for office, who are community leaders in every particular district. They know what the issues are at the grassroots level, not so much the party leadership at the top, which is not really doing anything. Look at what Hakeem Jeffries is doing, for example, okay, and even the local party leaders. So we want them to know what is happening at the grassroots. Wake up, smell the coffee, party leadership. And that's where the District Watch segment is becoming so important, folks. It is not paid consultants who are coming in and telling us, yeah, these are the issues at the grassroots level. No, these are people who have knocked on doors, who have talked the talk, who have walked the walk, telling us what is happening. And we also want to hold the elected representatives in these districts accountable for their action or inaction. Okay. If they're taking money from APAC and other sources, yep, we're going to talk and expose them. We're going to name names in here. Okay. As long as we are backed by facts. So no, innuendos and no conspiracy theories. But if you are an APAC supported or any other kind of corporate PAC supported person, you are not representing the people, and we are going to hold you accountable. So keep that in mind. It's about 8:25. If you want to join the conversation again, it's 773-763-9278. I'm going to go real slow this time with the numbers for people who like to write down things, especially if you're driving. I hate it when someone goes on the radio, call in this number, 1-800, da, 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 da. No. 773-763-9278. That is the number to reach us. You can also text us at that number. So going back, Mike, to your point, yesterday I had a very interesting afternoon at the South Asia Institute. For those of you folks who don't know what the South Asia Institute is, it's a couple of doctors, husband and wife, who retired, and they bought this building on South Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and they have set up a real nice place over there. It's a great auditorium, library, and they hold all kinds of programs in there to highlight South Asian issues, especially. And about a year back, they reached out to do a documentary or an oral history of the South Asian experience of immigrants coming to the United States. So they invited me and a few other folks who have been here for years to take our, to record our take on how we found the country, where we came from, why did we come over here, what are the changes that we have seen during all these years. And wonderful documentary. They created a documentary of this, and yesterday they released it.
Very nice.
Yep. And so we had quite a few people in there, and then there was a discussion on issues again. What brought us to the United States? Why did we come here? My first impression before I came here, they were asking, so what was your impression about the United States before you came in here? I mean, I used to watch American movies all the time. We had a movie hour in our school every week. And that was 1 hour, and they used to play, believe it or not, American movies. Okay. I grew up reading Tarzan comics and Phantom comics and Archie and all of those people, those comics. But my first impression before coming over here, I was told, do not walk publicly with a friend of the same sex holding their hands. Okay. Because back home in India or any other South Asian country, it is very common for folks who are friends to hold hands while walking in public. Okay. There is no, sexual thing attached to that. I was also told, don't walk up to a stranger walking or, with their baby and go ahead and say, oh, you got a beautiful baby. That is not, I mean, okay. And the other thing that really has stuck with me, my first visit to a McDonald's. So me being a Muslim, okay, I eat halal food, right? And when I walk into McDonald's with a group of friends, I was looking at the board and I go, what should I order? Everything seems to have meat in it. And so I finally ended up on, cheeseburger. So I said, okay, I'd like a cheeseburger, please. And they started putting it together. And then I said, no, hang on a second. Don't put any meat on it. So the girl looked at me like, what is this crazy person doing? First off, I had a thick British accent when I first came here, okay? And he wants to have a cheeseburger with no meat on it. So she just slapped a couple of pieces of extra cheese on it, and some lettuce and tomato, and pushed it at me and says, here, sir, here's your cheeseburger. Okay.
You should have gone to Burger King.
But those are some of the things that we were discussing yesterday afternoon at the South Asia Institute as to what the immigrant experience has been. And to a T, folks, everyone in this country, regardless, except for the indigenous Americans, we are all children of immigrants, okay?
Yeah.
And Andrew, to your point, a lot of the immigrants who came in the last few years have been people who have been displaced in their own countries by our country going in and bombing the heck out of their countries
Yep.
and their economies, forcing those people to migrate over here.
Yeah.
So let's not forget it, folks. Okay, and 8:30, right on the dot. I'd like to bring Demi back into the conversation. Good morning, Demi.
Morning. How's everyone doing?
Well,
Fine.
thank
How are you
you.
doing? Good morning.
Thank
Good.
you so
As good
much.
as we can be under fascism, you know?
Okay. Let me see why I am missing you in our. I'm going to remove the spotlight. Okay, there you go.
I see her.
Okay, you see her. So, District Watch, Demi, and Mike Patino and Chris Hilbert and Andrew Herrera are all going to be grilling you this morning. Okay.
Get
And I'm
ready.
going to shut up.
Good morning, Demi. It's so nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. And good to see all of you again. Hi, Andrew.
Yes, so we're very excited about your campaign. I'm so happy you won pretty handily, and it's very, very exciting for us to have one of us, going into the arena in November, right? So tell us a little, just tell the listeners and the Lightning Strike people out there, well, a little bit about yourself, just a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm Demi Palecek. I live in the 13th district. It is the primary I just won. The 13th district starts in Wrigleyville, literally next to the stadium, and goes up north to Andersonville, Edgewater. I am a proud uptowner, and we are just very diverse. We're very much working class. That's what I ran on, that I was the only working class person. That is how I joined the military. It was my pathway out of poverty, and I'm a pro-peace veteran. I'm still in. It's not going well right now. Pete Hegseth knows my name and absolutely hates me, and I'm fine with that. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, we're very working class. We are very immigrant and migrant heavy in my district. So, our top issues are fighting ICE and protecting our neighbors. We have huge food insecurities here. Um, we have a huge mental illness crisis in Uptown for a long time. It was our big hub in the entire nation, actually, for any mental health services. And then over 1 year, they defunded all of them. So what happens? That happens. This is our neighborhood. They're our neighbors. They just went outside. So it's a big our responsibility to try and find them houses and stability. And everyone is in the housing crisis. Property taxes are displacing a lot of people who have been in the neighborhood for 30, 40, 50 years. Like, where are they supposed to go? We've just had our third hospital in the district close in 6 years, so that's obviously an issue as well, and private healthcare. And we have a lot of schools, CPS schools in the district. I have McCutcheon Elementary in my district. They're a couple of blocks away. They're the only school in the state that does not have, they're not ADA compliant, and they don't have a gym. So that means their third floor, the students voted to carry each other up the stairs if they're disabled or in a wheelchair, to make sure their classmates did not miss out on any time being with each other. And that made me sad when the kids told me that. So that is a big thing I'm working on right now already.
Wow. That's just amazing. That they have to struggle that hard, but that there are people willing to help. And it shouldn't be that hard. It should be ADA compliant. That's ridiculous.
Right. And like when you look at it, they spend and how cold winters are here, how snowy they've been. They pay the brother and sister school next door, it's a couple blocks away, to borrow their gym, but that means the kids have to go in the middle of the day and put on all their stuff and walk together and hold hands in the snow for maybe 15 minutes of gym time, because that is what our state says that they have to have every single day. So that's crazy. And yeah, I mean, the students got together. They are very young. They got together, they made protest signs. They called Block Club, which is amazing. They made buttons, they made signs, and they had a whole rally. And like it was beautiful. And I love that they did that, but I was so angry that they don't get to do that. And so it's been 20 years of the money being pulled under the rug from them. And it's just like, oh, the $1 million is missing. How is $1 million missing? You know, or all the TIF fund, oh, we put it somewhere else, or, you know, it's not a priority. Well, it's definitely a priority to me when children who, you know, and in that school, like I think it's a quarter is unhoused, a quarter are disabled, and that's their stability, and they're voting to carry each other up 3 flights of stairs. Absolutely not. So yeah, I can go on forever about that.
Well, they're lucky to have somebody so passionate and caring about them. And I did go and check out your website, and your issues that you have on your website are just amazing. And the thing that stood out to me is that they are all related to people first. You know, we need the government, we support the government, and it come at some point the government has to help us because we're paying you to help us. You know, and give the workers, give the disadvantaged, give those that are, you know, health challenged in whatever way that is. It's time we put the least among us first, and not the uber wealthy and their endless greed for profit.
Absolutely.
So I just think that you just have an amazing platform, and you are so genuine in your caring, and it's so wonderful to see from a politician slash candidate. And I hope you win. I'm in Texas, and I'd vote for you, you know, if I could, but can't. So, but I'm pushing you, you know, on social media, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. And I'll let Mike and Andrew and Mohammed have a turn here, because I could just chat with you forever.
Okay. So Demi, are you coming for our fundraising dinner on the 29th?
I'm going to try right now. So I'm still in the military as much as I fight them and talk really bad about them. So I'm supposed to go to AT for like 3 weeks. I'm trying heavily to get out of it. There's actually not enough money to send me anyway, so I don't know why they're doing that. Yeah, they spent all the money on ballroom, so and not our healthcare or paying us. We didn't get paid last month for like 4 weeks after we went to drill. So if I can get out of it, I will be there.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Let's not forget the $15 million we spent on the reflecting pool also. Okay.
On anything but people.
Anything.
Yeah, and yeah, bombing innocent people in Gaza. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, it's literally all the money to Israel.
I was looking at something this morning before the show. In all our 20 years war in Afghanistan, we dropped, you know, an X number of bombs in 20 years in a country the size of Afghanistan. Israel has dropped more bombs on Gaza, which is probably like maybe Chicago or less, in the last few years than we did in 20 years. 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs.
It's crazy.
I mean,
that's unconscionable.
I haven't verified this, but I read that we've actually spent more money in the war on Iran than we spent in the entire war in Afghanistan already, and we're like 4 months in.
Oh my God.
Which makes sense if you consider all the military assets that that we're sacrificing. Also, we basically abandoned all of our Middle Eastern bases. The whole thing is from every perspective, even if you're national security hawk and whatever, the Iran war is a complete unmitigated disaster.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we got Steve from the Gold Coast calling in. Let's see what Steve has to say while we continue the conversation with Demi. Demi, are you available to stay on for a few minutes more?
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Okay, absolutely. So let's bring Steve in. Dylan, can you connect Steve to the conversation, please?
Yes, hello.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
Hello. Good morning. Yes, I wanted to know what your guests think about in terms of how we reconcile these issues. Because on the one hand, we want to provide social safety nets. We want to provide essential needs such as food and housing, mental health care, generally health care to the people of the city and specific neighborhoods. While at the same time, people are up in arms about increasing property taxes. Now, I contend that, we were fiscally irresponsible going back many, many decades, but we got this infusion of money vis-a-vis COVID in terms of the funding that was allocated out of Washington, states, counties, cities, and so forth. And that gave us some leeway, but we found ourselves heading for a fiscal cliff nonetheless. CPS, for instance, knew that this funding wasn't going to be indefinite, and instead they decided to hire more people for a school system that has a smaller and smaller number of students, and knowing full well that within a few years that money was going to be gone. The federal government was not going to be sending us any more checks. So how do we reconcile these things? People don't want to pay more property taxes, but at the same time, we have all of these expenditures, including pension funding and so forth, that we haven't met in terms of our obligations. How do we reconcile this? Because money has got to come from somewhere.
Let's see what Demi has to say on that. I wish you had joined the conversation when we had, Mayor Brandon on the show a few weeks back, Steve. But Demi, what say you?
No, that's very valid. Like, why, again, are workers paying more property taxes? Why are we paying more taxes in general? Why are we paying more for everything? And we deserve so much more. So right now we have 4 progressive revenue streams that we are heavily pushing for. A polluter's tax. I don't remember them exactly. It's very early. Haven't had caffeine yet. I could totally send them to you if you want to see them and read through them. But essentially, it would generate so much more money for everything that we deserve, and we would not be paying for it. And then number 2, tax the billionaires and the millionaires. Yeah. Why are we still saving? Like, we all collectively pay more taxes than any of them do. And that makes 0 sense. And they're not going to leave. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even if they did leave, because we don't see any of their revenue to begin with. So that's really relevant.
You have such a wonderful point that you just made. And Steve, thank you so much for your call. Keep on listening. And folks, for those of you who are listening out there in the whole wide world, the number to call in to join the conversation, 773-763-9278. And we really appreciate you getting up in the morning on Sundays and listening to us. You can watch this entire show on our YouTube channel, and we post it on our SoundCloud and on our Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, plenty of other places that you can go back and listen to the show. On our Facebook page also, and again, it's very simple. Just go to facebook.com/TLS radio. You can go to YouTube later on. We edit the show and post it on our YouTube channel. Again, it is youtube.com/@TLS radio. And the message is amplified. Like you said, Demi, people don't want to get up on Sunday morning and listen, right? Because, hey, it is Sunday. You want to you want to get snuggle into bed for a few more minutes. But the conversation continues. In 3 years, we have not missed a single show. And that is what we are committed to over here. So coming back to the conversation, Demi, I love what you just said. Where are these billionaires going to go? Because wherever they go, first off, they are not paying taxes over here to begin with. So yeah, good riddance, right?
Exactly. Yeah. How I feel about the Bears. Like, you want us to keep paying. I can't even afford to go to a game. So why are we going to pay more when we can't afford it? It's not our sport anymore. And even all of their workers at the stadium under the Bears games, most of them are on SNAP benefits. Most of them are still having to collect extra money or have third jobs. We are just pawns to a ton of billionaires, and I am not down to keep playing.
Absolutely. And the first trillionaire in the world coming up in America. This is obscene, folks. This is obscene. In the 9 o'clock hour, Congresswoman Maaria Newman will be joining us, and she is going to talk about the Iran war status, election fraud nonsense, and the change in congressional Dems on Israel funding compared to 2022. That is what Maaria is going to be to be talking about. At about 9:10, she joins the conversation. 9:30, attorney Maaria Mozaffar joins with her take on breaking the echo chamber. We used to have this segment of Person of the Week. We are suspending that segment till the elections. And we might go ahead and bring that back in another form or fashion. Our producer for that segment, Dr. Sheila White, has got other obligations going on in summer. She is a writer, she's a producer, director. She has been nominated for the Emmys. And so summer is very, very busy for Sheila. So she's asked us to take a little breather. And if you want, again, to highlight someone, do let us know. Just send an email to tls820@gmail.com. Continuing the conversation with Demi, folks. You go ahead, Chris and Mike and Andrew. Take it over from here.
I have a quick question. I think I couldn't agree more with this tax the billionaires and the millionaires and all that. And I think there's two challenges here, right? And the first is, when Governor Pritzker when he won the election, every single candidate who had run in that race had run on a millionaire's tax. But then somehow, when we actually ran the campaign for the millionaire's tax, it wasn't popular, which it doesn't make any sense to me. Nobody's against taxing millionaires. And to me, the campaign was run so poorly, it's almost like they wanted to lose. If anyone remembers the ballot question, the language was terrible. I knew what I was voting for when I walked in, and I almost didn't want to vote for it because it was so unclear. And a lot of people were seeing it for the first time, so they're just going to vote. They're going to vote with the status quo if they don't know what this constitutional amendment is going to change. That's very clear and obvious. And so I think that points to one problem, which is okay, there's these bigger kind of power structures, right? Even if you actually win the thing and you go for the campaign, then it's okay, who's structuring the campaign? And it's all very complicated and there's lots of stakeholders. And then the other part of the problem here is, the COVID funding really kind of makes very clear that there is money out there. We are being taxed and the money already exists. We don't even have to tax billionaires. The money's already there. It's just in the federal government, right? And I think the states have honestly ceded so much power to the federal government that it actually dilutes our power as voters. We don't have control over our own communities because we depend so much on federal funding for basic necessities in our states. And our blue states are paying substantially more than we're receiving already. And then the things that we get back are defense, but it's okay, how much money needs to go to the military? And then what you're saying, Demi, is well, they don't have enough money to pay you, but they're paying for all these patient interceptors. And it's the same way in CPS. When I was on the local school council, so much of the money is from the central office. So you'd have smart boards, but you wouldn't have paper. And you wind up with this really crazy imbalance. The allocation of resources is insane. And so with all of that, you're one of 118 state reps. One of 177 members overall. How do you think about being able to effectuate structural change when that's really what we need? And what do you think are the limitations, and how can people help you achieve those bigger goals?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about those in vice versa order. I think it's so funny that the question I get most, as a democratic socialist, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this? There was never one question how we paid billions of dollars for ICE agents to terrorize our streets. You know what I mean? There's never a question how we're going to afford to pay for Israel's monthly stipend they get and their education benefits. That's never been a question. But when I want to feed school kids lunches, it's the biggest ordeal, and I have to jump through all these hoops and do all that. That's insane to me. It's just gross. And I think of I'm in the National Guard. So I think of our Illinois National Guard military budget. There's a lot we can be doing there, to be scaling back. First off, why do we spend that much? So the third party contractors is what costs the state so much money in the military. I've been in for 15 years. I have to pay for my own health insurance through the military, which is fine. I'll do that. Even though that's not what they say it is. That's not how they market it. But they still have not paid off my school. I still owe $50,000 in student loans. That is like, that's one of the reasons I joined. You know what I mean? So that's what one thing I want to do. It's why I'm holding on so long to stay in the military still, because I know the inside issues and I feel like we can actually have more money for the state and take it away from the military budget and then at least give it to the soldiers, right? Like even like when they pass away, they say there's all these burial benefits. There's not really. Or to get them, you have to jump through so many hoops, right? They say we can use this VA loan or we can get the train for free. In order to get those benefits, me as a younger person, able-bodied with a printer, which is weird, with a computer, and I know how to read and I know how to use my computer, I was still denied from a CTA card like 3 or 4 times. So if I'm denied for, you know what I mean? Like how long is it taking like a senior who like it took him a whole library day, whatever, right?
Yep.
And I
And
think,
that's a lot of what Mamdani is doing now, right? Where he's just like, this the bureaucracy is it's too burdensome. And so how do we make government actually accessible to people?
yeah, and I love what Anna Valencia has done with the city. She's made it mobile. So like, you know what I mean? And I cannot wait to sign up multiple areas of my district to come do that. And you know, a Saturday and Sunday, get ID cards, get whatever we need. And now connecting it with the library card and CTA, anything like that. And you know, to your first point about our communication as Democrats absolutely sucks. And I feel not really, I'm not the establishment. I'm not accepted really in the party, and that's fine because I talk a lot of shit about them. Because I have a lot of issues with them.
Well, it's Demi, it's not so much, talking a lot of S things about them. It is just holding up a mirror to them. What are
Yeah.
you guys doing? What are you doing,
Tell
man?
the
Come
truth.
on, get off your buff, okay?
I feel that they fail on purpose. They fail on purpose. They do those things on purpose because at the end
Yes.
of the day, most of them are the same as Republicans and they have the same donors. I don't take a lot of money. I don't even take money from the deli, immigrant-owned deli down the street because it's an LLC technically. You know what I mean? Like I'm beholden to the people and not to donors. And I think that is where, you know, money is the root of all of the greed and evil. And that's why we can't move forward because then they go back to their donors and see this didn't pass. We need more money. I've seen several Congress people do it. I've asked in meetings and they just say, I need more money and I need you to vote. No, people are being hunted down in the streets. You know, kids are starving. I'm not going to wait till November to vote. And it's not going to be for you, you know? So
Hey, let me ask you something real quick. Do you have any allies, helping you out? I mean, is this a one woman show here or what?
it's not, my dog is very supportive. No, I'm just
Hey, but unfortunately, even in Chicago, yeah, sometimes dogs do vote in Chicago. Let's not forget that. Okay.
And often.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very grateful. Miguel just won a state rep seat near me. I thought we overlap more. We don't. But we're excited to work together. You know, Norma has been amazing. Anastava has been amazing. Like there are a lot of progressives, you know, and it's just the same conversation of how do we keep going more left? Like the only way to get out of fascism is going more left. The only way.
We had Rachel Ventura as a guest on the show a few weeks back. I had such a pushback from the establishment in Will County about getting Rachel on the air, and I lost quite a few friends in the party when we got Rachel on.
Wow.
I
Ridiculous.
love what Rachel does, and she has said that consistently over the few years that I've known her. She said, "The people vote for me, the party doesn't."
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and that's also the thing. Like, I won in a 5-way primary in a plurality or with a plurality. And the other day, someone's like, I can't believe you're not going to go to the party's campaign training. And I was like offended that he said that. And then I was like, the way that you run races, first off, is not working. Secondly, you need to learn from me. And third, go talk to the voters. Like, how hard is it to just go outside and talk? Like, door knocking is my favorite. I lost like 30 pounds door knocking. It is my favorite thing to do. And like, you learn so much about every area and what their needs are. And like, that's why I'm so excited because, in our press release we sent the night that I won the primary, we're on to the general, but relief for the district starts now. So we do a lot of things for the senior homes. Seniors only have $30 to $52 to survive on a month after they've paid their expenses to their housing programs that they're in. So that means
Oh,
to buy medicine, toilet paper, soap.
yeah.
We were able to raise like 1,000 bars of soap. So they don't have to pay for that for a while, or toilet paper, or lotion, or anything like that. We make monthly sandwich for solidarity. We have multiple food cabinets. If anyone knows how to build, we need more builders because it's just been me and they're
Right.
struggling. Um, we're going to do a lot of things on property tax reform and how to, get that back or do it. A lot of people had no idea. And I get that. If I had a house,
Yeah.
I would not know what to do.
It's 8:55, folks. You are tuned in to the Lightning Strike on WCPT, 8:20 a.m. If you would like to join the conversation, the number to call in 773-763-9278. We are in our District Watch segment with Demi Palecek joining us as our District Watch correspondent. And uh, Demi, I wanted to, I don't know if you have been following the 97th District Representative Harry Benton and his stories. Harry basically was forced to resign after the speaker got on his case, but no one knew what the actual story was. The Tribune has that a couple of days back. They came up with actually what happened with Harry Benton, and it was sexual harassment. And it was brought to the attention of the speaker's office by the lady who was harassed, and the speaker's office just brushed it off for a long time till more and more cases started sprouting up, and eventually they had to take action. So now the party is basically inviting, because Harry was on the ballot for November. And by the way, Harry was double dipping. He was also the highway commissioner over here for the township and getting a salary of $72,000 from the township highway commission position. That should not be allowed to happen. And the party just had interviews, and it's going to be tomorrow. They're going to announce who is going to be replacing Harry for the remainder of the session and will be on the ballot. About 5 or 6 people have interviewed. Very interesting developing story. But what I wanted to really point out, if the speaker knew about this 6 months back, why wasn't the action taken 6 months back? Why was these ladies continuously ignored by the administration when they complained? You talk about a swamp in Washington. Yeah, we got a swamp right over here in Springfield also. Let's not forget it. So when you go in, yeah, you're going to have a fight on your hands with these, swamp lords or whatever, however you may want to call them out. You're going to have a fight on your hands. So just be aware of that.
Well, I've been following this really closely since it was a rumor, and I do think that it's a little complicated just in terms of you have like basically it's like an internal HR process, right, to the government, where there's a complaint and there's an investigation, there's all those kinds of things, and then there's the electoral process, which is separate. And I do think one of the uncomfortable things about democracy is that if you have a true democracy, you have to be able to vote for people who are bad or do bad things, because otherwise you're giving up power to some kind of bureaucracy to say who's allowed to run, who's not. And that's just unavoidable. And you see this kind of with the Plattner thing that's happening right now. And then the party gets control, right? And so the party in the Plattner case is just picking a candidate, even though more Mainers voted for Plattner than have voted for anybody in Maine's history.
72% of the vote is what Plattner got in the primary. Okay, in history of Maine, never happened like that.
Right, and so you look at that situation, and I think the challenge with Benton is that the speaker, as I understand it, and this is hearsay, so don't hang it on my word here or whatever, but that he was asked to resign like a very long time ago, like a year ago, and he just wouldn't, and it's very difficult to remove a member, outside of the process of of an election. Uh, and so they've kind of exhausted every single thing, and it's like I don't understand what Harry was thinking. The kind of I think the arrogance of it to let it
Well,
go all
and
the way to the end.
Andrew, in full disclosure, Harry is a very good friend of mine. Harry and I both ran for the village board over here in 2019. We ran as a team, in fact. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
once
Harry's a
Harry got
likable guy.
onto the village board, then he got into Springfield, something changed.
Se le fue la cabeza, like it went to his head, I think.
Yeah,
And
it really went to his head. I mean, but anyway, let's not talk about Harry. It's 9 o'clock, folks. We are at the top of the hour. The station is going to be taking a break for NBC News, and they also get some advertising off of our show over here that they make the money, okay? But we are not taking any kind of corporate advertising, folks. We are continuing the conversation live on Facebook, so keep tuned with us on our Facebook page. But do come to our
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Okay.
Right.
So WCPT will be on break for about another 3 minutes, and while we continue the conversation over here, coming back again to facts matter. We talk facts over here, folks. Okay, no conjectures. And the fact of the matter is, the party did drop the ball, Andrew, for over a year, and now with 3 months to go before the election, Gabby Shanahan from the Republican Party is chomping at the bits now. You should see what is happening in Will County over here in the 97th district, because I live in the 97th district. The Republicans are salivating at the mouth over here like, oh, we are going to get this seat now. Okay. Why couldn't the party have taken this decision 3 months back, 4 months back? Okay. When they could have forced Harry, like last month, he was literally, Chris Welch is like, you better resign or we are going to get you out. That should have been done 3 months back, 4 months back, if the party knew what they were doing.
I think he
Okay.
did.
Well,
I think he
if I
did.
can interject for a second, please. Thank
Please
you.
do.
With Demi here, while we got her, we look forward to the fact that she's going to be for the people. Okay. And so we look forward to getting her in office, whatever we need to do to get you there. And we're going to be with you all the way. All right. And when you do get in, we're going to need you to help answer some of these questions, because we don't know what's going on in there. I mean, it seems to be blocked by the powers that be, but nobody knows who's blocking it. Everybody's lying about it. You can't get a straight answer out of any of these state reps or state senators, other than a few like yourself and Rachel Ventura. So please get elected, please. Okay? We need you.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of that, Demi, one of the ideas that we've been discussing over here at the Lightning Strike is coming Sunday morning is good, but we want to have not virtual, but in-person town halls. And if you are doing something in your district, feel free to invite us along. We'd love to come there and go live on our social channels for people to listen to you and to us. We want to do this in different areas of Chicagoland, not just restricted to Sundays. Sometime kind of like a business after hours. We are going to be setting up one soon in the Joliet area, and maybe do once or twice a month, and just get together with folks. And getting out the vote in front of the elections is all the rage over here, right? Go TV, go TV. Yeah, no, we need to be having people invested in the process throughout the year, not just in front of the elections. That
Right.
will really bring out the vote. Okay, so that's what we want to start doing as our commitment, depending on, Mike has got things to do, I got things to do, we got to put food on the table. and pay for the show, okay, while doing all of these things. But you want to set up something in your neck of the woods before the elections that we could come down and just sit down in a restaurant or somewhere and get the local community to come out and talk to us. Not politics, but life, like we did at the South Asia Institute yesterday.
Yeah, we totally can do that. Yeah.
Okay,
so wonderful. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be great. And at your convenience, just set up something. Let Mike know. I would be happy to come out. I hate to shave during the week, but I will have to shave to come out. Okay.
Well, one thing. Let me add one quick question. We haven't even touched on one of my pet peeves, which is data centers. And
okay, Mike, if you hang on with your question for just a second, Marie is joining us, so I'd like to welcome her into the conversation if she could. And we are back live on the air on WCPT. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, data centers are just they're just disgusting. And I'm working with some people, another young budding politician up in the Grays Lake area. And we're trying to stop these things. And what's your position on these?
I mean, I'm very against data centers. Thankfully, my district's not a hot zone for having one, but that doesn't mean, that the areas that they are going to want them either. I know Blue Island, I am very proud my Army unit's over there. So when I drive there and I see all the no data centers in Blue Island, I'm like, okay, all right. So we are collectively all against these. And the data centers keep coming out with their own marketing, their own talking points. It's not this bad. It holds our medical records, whatever. If that's true or not, not a fact. But at the end of the day, I think that finally it's something that we're all agreeing on. Like that we've not it's hurting our
But Demi, here, I want to be Donald Trump's advocate. I don't use the word devil's advocate on Sunday mornings, so I'm just going to say Trump's advocate, okay? What do we do? I mean, how do we manage to store all of this data that we are creating with electronic media? What is the answer for that?
I mean, we've been doing it for years.
Right, but the volume has increased substantially now, right?
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that they now need to move in right next to the river to have closer access to water sources to continue to keep using them, and then them not be truthful about what they're actually using. And then also them not paying, right? Like, so there would definitely be regulations and they won't agree to any of the regulations. So if they were abiding by the rules or, the regulations that we already have, which are not very strict, to be honest, and you want to agree to those regulations already, I think that's weird. Doesn't make sense.
Okay, folks, Demi Palecek joining us on our segment that we have created, District Watch. We got Marie Newman joining us, Congresswoman. Thank you so much for joining. Good morning, Marie. And Demi, you're welcome to stay on for the rest of the show and chime in if you would, especially with your military background, because Marie wants to talk about what the heck is happening with the Iran war that we have unfortunately been dragged into by our good friend, the Yahoo out of Israel. Good morning, Marie.
Good morning, everyone. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful day. Demi's words were prescient, right? We do have to decide this, and we've been producing data, and you're right, they're, by even activist measures, we've produced something like 4 times the data volume as of 2 years ago that we ever did before. So we do have to figure this out. Demi's right. We can't have them in highly populated areas, and they do have to abide by regulatory models, right? And they're just simply flat out not, right? So I'll touch on a couple of other items related to this later, but I do want to make this fine point. It's very similar to the crypto industry. By and large, very corrupt industry, right? But it has been kind of propagated throughout the international system, and it is. So it's a little bit like we can stop fighting about if it exists and know that it exists. It's about keeping them regulated, right? And it's not to stop all their businesses or any of that nonsense, but they do have to have guardrails, and they do have to exist in places where they're being honest about what they do and not in populated areas. And here's my personal prediction is that I think a lot of these places are going to end up in what they call red rock zones, which would be in areas in New Mexico and Idaho and Utah. And what's funny about this is they'll end up in very rural, remote areas in red areas, meaning very Republican areas, right? And I think that's the way this is going to go. But I do think that the next administration has to be a really a prioritized measure of regulatory status that goes out immediately. So it is one of those things, though, we do have to live in reality. They exist. Crypto exists. Now we have to make sure that people start abiding by the law and creating laws that will keep it a safer, more secure thing. So with that,
I think one thing on that, just real quick, crypto doesn't have to exist, right? Just because it exists doesn't mean it has to exist.
So Andrew, so interesting. I thought of that way for like a very, very long time. It actually has been available in European and Asian markets for 27 years.
Sure, it's going to be a thing. It's like saying online gambling exists, so we all just have to deal with it. There's a lot of bad industries.
No. I'm saying that, is there a way, since if we have that there already, is there a way to regulate it and create it into a lawful, non-corrupt industry? In looking at the data, I think there is a way to make it a democratized monetary system. I think we do have the ability to. That said, you might be right. Maybe it's impossible. I don't know, but no one has tried either, and that's my point. Is everybody just keeps ignoring it.
Well, and I think with AI, what we're talking about with AI is like, to Mohammed's earlier point, like, well, the data exists. What are we talking about, really? Half of AI generation is porn. Like, we're giving up the world's water.
That would be regulated, right? We should regulate that.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is, like, we can get rid of half of right there. You can get what is the
So we should, right? So
Right.
how do we do that? We legislate that.
Right.
We acknowledge that we can make it because there's porn, just, newsflash, I know everyone on this panel knows this, but there's porn in every single industry, just so you know. And half of it, it's AI generated. So what we have to do is make it a universal set of legislation guidelines and laws that would say, look, you can't use AI to make porn. You can't use crypto in international crime schemes. There is a way to do this. My point is that the longer we ignore this stuff, the worse off we're going to be. So it does exist. We can either figure out how to legislate it away and it doesn't exist anymore. That there may be some areas where we can do that. But I also think that there is a way to create regulation that will stop most of the harm. And I think we can do that quickly, actually.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. And I just think the really important point for us and all of the listeners to really hold on to is that we, the people, do have the power to say no. Because I think so much of the world right now tells us, well, it's just fait accompli. It's just a thing that's already done. And you're just going to have to live with a new reality. And like the whole AI narrative 6 months ago was like, oh, well, you're just anti-future. You're anti-progress. You're a Luddite, And at the end of the day, like, there is a legal concept that the people have to allow for an industry to exist.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that public approval for a company to operate can be revoked. And we have to always know that we have that power.
Yeah, we do. And just to be clear, I never said that.
No, I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying this is something I think that people should.
But I think it's a good reminder. It's a very healthy reminder. That's what activism is that you go in and say, no, we actually are objecting to your premise. So what I'm saying is that we can healthily, in a very healthy way, and we've done it very well in Illinois. By the way, the activists have done an amazing job of stopping some AI centers. So, and there's many states that have done a good job. Is that we can actually
9:14. Sorry to be butting in, folks, but Marie's segment on Ignore
right.
at Your Risk starts in 1 minute.
But Andrew, all good points. I'm with you, my brother. Yeah.
And Demi has to leave also. Demi, thank you so much for joining us this morning. and feel free to come back, and we will, we will definitely look at that idea of doing public town halls and being there during the week in the evenings, and we can go live on our Facebook and social media for those town halls, as long as we have an internet connection. Again, Demi, thank you so much for joining us. Andrew, sorry to be cutting in. We look, I look at the clock like a hawk every Sunday morning.
Somebody has to.
So please don't feel
keeps us
offended,
in line.
if I bust in and say, hey, come back on time. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Demi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Demi.
Thank you guys so much.
Nice to have
Have a
you.
good rest of your day.
You too.
Okay,
we'll be in
so
touch.
9:15 on the dot, folks. Ignore at your risk with former Congresswoman Maaria Newman. Maaria, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I want to thank Chris and Mike about these in-district updates. I find them to be invaluable, and it's not a small thing to produce these things, by the way, because folks like Demi and our other in-district watch folks are very busy, right? And then making sure that we're getting the most important information out there is really good. So thank you to Chris and Mike, and thank you to all of our in-district watch announcers. We have a lot of them. And so, and by the way, Chris and Mike, I've gotten a bunch of texts and messages on social media that people are really enjoying it, that are specific to their area. So, and because they are very underreported areas when these folks are coming on. So the in-district watches are, I'll just tell you a bunch of people from Nick Unijeski's district that he was running in. He was a former state senator candidate, and a bunch of them said, housing is a big deal now, and it's mostly because Nick talked about it in his campaign, but then you guys allowed it to be talked about on your show. So I want to thank you for that. So so good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ignore at Your Risk. So another super wild week. I know everyone's absolutely shocked by that. With the war in Iran has escalated. We're in a very dangerous trajectory here, folks, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The fraud called election fraud, it's the fraud of a fraud, so to speak, so kind of fun. And then the changes in congressional Dems' attitude on Israeli funding, it's dramatic, and I'm just going to give you a couple of metrics that will absolutely explode that in everybody's illustration. So let's start with the first things first, and what is going on with Iran. I thought I would quickly recap where we're at, and then I just want to share some thoughts with everybody. So, the conflict has sharply escalated in the last several days because Trump decided that the ceasefire that wasn't a ceasefire is over, and they're back in active operations. We're all clear on that. So now we are seeing casualties again. We're seeing 2 U.S. service members were killed in the attack, and many more casualties. And then what's worse, and I want to remind everybody, we are not getting accurate casualty reports from the DoD at this time. And so that's really critical. That is the first time since Vietnam we haven't received accurate casualties when people are injured. And it's our understanding, based on some reporting from the Wall Street Journal and from Drop Site News, that it could be in the thousands now of casualties. So just to put a point on that. And then we're back to the blockade of the blockade, which is still, and it shouldn't make me giggle a little bit because it's a horribly serious thing, but it's this constant with Trump in this war of, oh, you're going to blockade me, I'm going to blockade you, which makes no sense. And now he's creating an economic crisis throughout the world. But, in point of fact, they're disabling and redirecting commercial ships. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the IRGC, has threatened nations hosting U.S. forces and has warned of strikes on nearby Gulf cities. And now we have a full-on regional war, right? We've got fighting from other nations that have been drawn in Kuwait and Jordan. They're intercepting incoming Iranian missiles. So what does all this mean to the rest of the world? It means that we're becoming toxic, folks, is that the U.S. is becoming a toxic force in the world. We used to be a force for good. And even though we are a highly flawed nation, we were always, at the end of the day, a force for good. So this war is demonstrating to the world that we can never be trusted again in war negotiations. And because of the bungling and absolute incompetence and ineptitude of Trump and Vance and Witkoff and Rubio and Kushner, Not only do they know that we're wholly incompetent, and we don't have real diplomats going over there or people that understand the machinations of other countries, but that they're a force for evil, right? Is that none of them have good intentions and they're very happy to lie, cheat, and steal just like they do in real life. So, we're also seeing that Iran is now vowing to bomb all US bases. So what is to stop them from limiting their bombs to the Middle East? We're now just tempting fate for them to bomb in other places. And I have to tell you, we're not going to get a lot of sympathy from the rest of the world, and that's traumatic. And we have no exit strategy. So right now, barring, they stumble into some level of agreement, it's going to be a much worse agreement than the JCPOA was, which was President Obama's agreement to keep nuclear weapons at bay and for them not to create uranium so that they could have bombs. But tragically, and most importantly, and this is how I want to end this piece, is that we're increasing casualties. What people don't understand is that when active duty come home, their whole lives are shattered when they have whether it is PTSD or that they've lost a limb or that they've ingested anything that's toxic in the area, whether it is an agent of war or it is some other chemical. Bad things happen to your body and you blow up families, and it's in the thousands now. So I want everybody to remember families are completely torn apart by this. Right now the Wall Street Journal is reporting President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are actively, and they've reported on this 5 times in the last 2 weeks, that they are actively considering the use of ground troops. And so at the end of this, I'm going to talk about, well, what can we do? And you know what I'm going to say is call your senators and focus on Republican senators and say, look, you send ground troops in, you guys won't be in power again for another 20 years. So think about what you're doing. And then in the following days of briefings, Trump was presented with military options, including deploying forces on the ground with specific objectives, attacking the Strait of Hormuz, stopping oil exports, and on and on. So he's actively weighing all of these escalatory options. Hegseth has maintained that everything is in ambiguity. He is very coy about this, and so when he can't actively answer a question, rather, that's very problematic for the Secretary of Defense. So what needs to be done? We have to absolutely flood the zone of particularly the Republican war hawk Congress members and Senate members and tell them that they have to limit Trump's war powers, and they have to do it today. So that thing keeps failing by a vote or two. Come on, we can get this done, folks. So flood the zone. And then as a reminder, I just want to tell everybody at the end of this, there's a tale on this that's important to note. And about 50% of the country thinks that we should impeach, indict, put Trump through due process and all of his cabinet, because all of his cabinets have committed felonies as well. Convict him, and then, put him in, put the man-child into jail, right? So if we don't do that, just think about that. Will any country ever trust us again? And they will automatically assume that we, in fact, are going to elect another version of Trump. So let's keep that in mind, as painful as that process will be. And everybody remembers every time we've gone through something like this, he's been impeached twice. But if we don't provide justice, the rest of the world will be watching. So just remember that. So let's turn our attention to election fraud. So first, I want to give some good news, and I'm going to do a Substack tomorrow about this, is that all of the 20 blue state AGs are doing tabletop exercises, coming up with every possible permutation of what will happen on Election Day and after Election Day. And I have to tell you, in watching all of their work and kind of tabulating it, and I've been capturing it for about 2 months now, they really are thinking of every scenario. So I want to tell you that, is it 100% safe? No. Is it incumbent on all of us to say, hey, watch these guys and support your AGs and support the rule of law? Of course it is. But I do have to tell you, I am confident that they are prepared this time. I would say the state AGs have done a great job of addressing all of the felonies and going after them because they were ready to attack Project 2025 and all of its horrible assets, right? What they weren't ready for in the 2024 election is that if there was electoral malfeasance, because it had been proven so many times that there was no issue with election fraud. So this time, very interestingly, yes, their ongoing works to go after this administration when they are corrupt or commit felonies that's clockwork. They're doing that round the clock, but they're also literally doing tabletop exercises weekly to understand what are the various possible crazy things they can do. And they're pretty wild. Some of those descriptions are pretty wild. And they're ready, folks. So I just want to assure folks that even though Trump said, there's a couple of quotes that stood out. The one that stood out to me from Trump on Thursday night was, "This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels we've never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, foreign interference. And just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you." Well, as a reminder, all of the news outlets, including Fox News and CBS, who carried the actual speech, said that none of this has been verified. They said it several times during the expanse of the speech and then afterwards. And notably, Fox News, his best friend and his best media outlet for his agenda, said several times Bret Baier said it several times during the actual speech and then after, and made a big deal. And why did they do that? Because they had been sued for lying about other elections. So they know that they are. So even their own people are saying this is fraught with lies. So let's all be buoyed by that, but let's also stay very vigilant. Keep talking about this. Keep bringing it up to your independent friends. Our independent friends are really critical in this. It's 45% of the nation, and they can make or break this election. So keep talking to your independent voting friends. So some big shifts in Congress is my final topic tonight, and this is very good news. I'll give you a little frame of reference. In 2022, when we voted to fund Israel, as we do every year, there's one vote in the NDAA process that goes through a 100% unanimous decision, and it funds Israel sometimes around $8 billion. But in 2022, there was a separate supplemental bill to give Israel another $3 billion. And 9 of us, including myself, voted to not fund Israel's Iron Dome because it wasn't necessary. We had already given them a ton of money. So there was 9 of us voting against it. In 2026, there are 103 members of the Democratic Party in Congress that voted to defund Israel because they know how they use this money. They don't use it for defensive measures. They use it for offensive measures. So really big deal. Similarly, in 2022, 15% of congressional candidates and elected officials supported defunding Israel. Now, 65% of candidates in the 2026 election, whether they're newcomers or they are electeds, really support not funding Israel. So who do we have to thank for that? All of you. It's the activism that we are all partaking in to highlight that this is a genocide. Netanyahu is a terrorist and an authoritarian, and AIPAC is supporting both of those things. So thank your local activists. Thank all of you, because activism works, folks. Tomorrow I'll talk about those tabletop exercises if you have interest on my Substack. And as always, feel free to reach out and ask questions. So thank you all, and I'll turn it back to Mohammed.
Maaria, thank you so much. Right on time. Like I was telling before, I watch the clock like a hawk, okay, on these things. But till November, till the elections, we are suspending our Person of the Week segment. So we have more time to talk about these important issues before the elections and keep people informed. Speaking of keeping people informed, Maaria has joined the conversation. Good morning, Maaria.
Good morning. How are you? Good morning to everyone. Yeah, right on time,
Good
Maria.
morning.
She had such
Okay.
a wealth of information. I love for her to go on, and thank you so much. I think one thing I want to lead with here is her statement on the power of independence. I think that many times we consider, because of our two-party system, that the independents have a role only when they can get elected as candidates. But the independent movement, actually, individuals that don't prescribe to any party or don't want to do pure party line voting, provide a breadth of information and policy context and policy counter policy thoughts as well that we need to take into account. So it's very interesting, because that to me has always been, Maria, I don't know if you agree with this, where the independents stand is really a framework of what needs to be moved or pivoted with, and with other party line policy agendas, right? Like it's like a group of people that understand that
Oh,
Okay,
Oh, I
we
think
lost
you put yourself.
Maria's audio for it.
Well, I'll just answer for her since she asked me a question while she's getting back on, is that independents do, she's absolutely right. Independents do that. There she is.
There she
Yeah,
is.
go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Marie. Go ahead.
No,
Go
I
ahead,
was
Marie.
just completing that thought you and I were talking about, is that independents do move issues. They are issue voters. They aren't centrists, they're issue voters. So
Yeah.
when there's an issue that needs to be addressed, they are the ones that move the metric. So, yep, absolutely.
Right, exactly. So there are a couple of, C-SPAN theater that happened this week that is fascinating, and I think it's interesting. Oops, there we go. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to see really how much legislative. We have this thing called lawfare, which basically you use the law to argue a lot of these issues, and you go into litigation. And then you have legislative gymnastics, I want to say, which is basically a way to kind of not play theater, but bring things to light. And what I found powerful is there was a recent bill on college athletics, right? There's a college athletics bill that kind of revamps how college athletics will be supported, different rules and modifications. And as you know, the institutions of college athletics has been huge for so many different states, especially Big Ten state schools. It makes a huge impact for the students coming in, for the families investing. And they're huge powerhouses. In fact, the regents and the elections of the board regents for these universities are so powerful for this reason. And so what I found interesting is that there were modifications through a legislative bill, and the Congressional Black Caucus stood united against allowing any kind of discussion or voting or movements on this college bill. So now it's very interesting for someone to watch from the outside. Is this about sports? Is this about the fact that the Congressional Black Caucus feels like they have a powerful role to play and how they want college athletics to be used because it impacts the communities? Well, what's powerful is that their statement said we're actually not participating in any discussion or voting because voting rights is under attack in the same communities that these athletes come from. So, folks, I just want to give that as an example of how we can connect the dots and how we can use our power when we do legislative gymnastics. Because they're basically saying, look, you are actually talking about these powerful athletes that bring in so much money, so much talent, so much discipline to your universities, but the same communities that they come from are being robbed of their right to vote and to have ethical processes of the legislative and the voting processes in this country that should be afforded to them as a right. So what they're basically recognizing is power comes in many, many forms, and you cannot take and leverage from communities what you need in time of legislative power and then not give fundamental rights. And I think that's very interesting. So that was very important, I think, to pay attention to, because we can all do that in so many ways, right? So for example, when we talk about Gaza, it's very interesting, Marie, the issue of Gaza, right? When we talk about independence, we talked about this when the last election was happening, and there was a focus on the third party candidate, right? And the third party candidate came out as an alternative, but it wasn't about the candidate. It wasn't about Jill Stein. It was what she represented as an alternative policy position. So people are always wondering, they're like, oh, why did people go for that third candidate when they knew that Trump was going to come in and cause an attack on the Constitution, right? And what was motivating and inspiring for people was to say, no, this is our way to make Gaza and what is happening in Gaza and the funds supporting Gaza a major issue in the elections. It was wielding power, the same role that the Congressional Black Caucus is doing with the athletic sports bill. And what happened now? What we see now with all of that, division and that arguing that, you're wasting time, you're causing Trump to come into office. Well, what has happened now? A lot of the leading candidates that have not officially announced that they're running for president are very open of where they stand with Gaza. In fact, they call Gaza genocide. So at that time, people were arguing that it was a futile pursuit to do this. But the reason was it was to highlight a policy item. And for a lot of people, genocide was a red line. And now there are presidential candidates, senatorial candidates, House of Representative candidates that cannot get elected in their districts unless they say genocide is a red line. And so this is how policies develop. It takes a little bit of time, but you have to recognize that sticking to your principles and seeing that if we budge on these principles, what we're going to see is a further list of compromises that may not result in something that's ethical. Now, I find this very different from compromising. Marie, you may have an opinion on this. Compromising when we're talking about developing bills and developing policies. You always compromise and negotiate. You always say, okay, well, let's see how far we can get in a couple of years, but let's keep moving forward. That's a different type of compromising. But what we're talking about is red lines. And so for the Congressional Black Caucus, their red line was, you're taking our youth, our powerful athletes, using them in your institutions, passing policy bills that affect them and affect the institutions and their futures. You want us to support this, but you're not going to give them the right to vote. You're attacking their right to vote, right? So for them, that's a red line. So what is the red line for all of us? That's what's very, very important to understand and decide, because I think that this notion that politics is all about compromise is a incomplete statement. I think it's all about compromise when fueled by principles that cannot be budged when it comes to your moral compass. I think that is the full sentence. And that's when you get really accurate public representation that represents moral values that take you somewhere. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, I don't know if all of you saw there are two groups, very powerful groups. They're parents on for accountability with tech, and then there's another parent group that's talking about social media. And both of them have moved forward to say that the large CEOs of tech companies again need to come in, be subpoenaed, and testify. I want to just say a little bit about this, because we have now seen for the last 6 to 5 years where tech has been brought into congressional chambers and asked to testify on what they're doing to protect children and protect youth. And why are we in the same place again and again? And what we really, really have to look at in this framing is not that tech companies can't be reined in, not that tech companies are so powerful that they lobby their way out, but from my original statement of where I began, when we look at the example of the Congressional Black Caucus, is it a red line for technology to make money off the mental health of our kids? Is it a red line? And I think for many people, it is. I think for many people, to turn children into consumers that's bad for their mental health would be a problem for the average American. And so the reason why we are in this game again and again, where tech companies are not being reined in, is because we have not identified it as a red line. And unfortunately, you have cases and situations that are very, very drastic that I just want to bring attention to for people that don't know. There are cases of suicide. There are cases of kids who are using tech to be to have a partnership or an allyship with a model that they believe is human, right? They have body dysphoria issues. There's mental health depression issues that have now proven to be that the largest amount of meds, antipsychotic meds, have been prescribed for ages 10 to 17. Can you imagine? We have children in our country, in a first world country, on meds, in a first world country where there is food and there is shelter, and hopefully healthcare, a lot of these children are now turning to meds just to feel better. Right? So this is a red line. And I would say, just like all the other issues that have shown in the past, the two that we talked about, voting rights in minority communities, genocide and funding genocide, I would say profiting off our children to make money, to make tech companies money, is going to not only impact the children currently right now, which we should as parents not allow, but where are the future innovators going to come from? Where is that generation going to come from in which they're going to create wonderful and new ideas and they're intellectually thriving if they're all stuck on a phone and device and self-doubting themselves, and as we see the increase of these antipsychotic meds being used for children, right? So I just wanted to say that. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, just to close it up, is unfortunately, there were two deaths, actually. Unfortunately, there were two deaths, and I'm sure that somebody talked about this, at the hands of ICE agents recently, right? And one thing that I had learned from hosting the Interfaith National Town Hall on religious liberties that Marie Newman participated in, speaking about the Catholic perspective, one thing I understood very clearly, that across the board, faith communities have a huge issue on the way that ICE is operating, right? As all of us have. But the question is, what can we do about it? And I was thinking about this with the detention center in Texas, and talking about the changes and the reforms and the building of spirits within for people that are behind bars. What can we do for detention centers? And I think really we need to push to the axis of chaplaincy. We need to have faith communities having a role. If you're not going to let elected officials in, if you're not going to let individuals that you think are agitators, right? What about the individuals that are faith-based? Because according to the Republican Party, the faith-based initiatives are of highest priority for them. So will you allow clergy to walk into detention centers and actually look at the detention centers and speak to the children themselves? And so that's something I just want to leave you with, because that's something I am going to be addressing. And moving and recognizing that if you are not going to allow journalists, if you're not going to allow elected officials, will you allow clergy and chaplains? Because maybe that is the only way that we can get into these detention centers and look at the way it has been operating. In addition to that, as far as reining in ICE agents, Marie, I would ask you this question. I just want to add this because I can't end on the ICE topic so easily. So we come back now to the body cameras, right? We have had this discussion so many times that you've had $800 billion investment in ICE and Homeland Security, and you don't have money for body cams. How can you defend, how can you defend the fact that those individuals at that time did not have body cams when they shot that man, 26-year-old, right? What is the defense for that? Is it lack of funding? And I just wonder if you can suggest what the response would be. Really, I'm throwing it out to you. You're on mute. You're on mute, Marie.
There we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mike Johnson just responded to this. This is very interesting. And he's done this many times. So I'll tell you how they respond. When a reporter or someone says, hey, why aren't the body cameras being used, and why are not they being trained that they have to use it, and all those things? They immediately come back with, well, they don't have the funding. But unfortunate for Mike, the way that doesn't work is because, just so everybody's clear, ICE is fully funded through 28. Fully funded.
Okay.
The way the bill works. Right. So they cannot use the excuse that they're not funded. They can say, they could be honest and say, look, we're not training our folks properly, and we're not buying body cams. That's the real reason. But they can no longer use the excuse or the defense, to your point, of, hey, we don't have the money. They have the money. They're fully funded. Fully funded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody can look it up.
Absolutely.
Who's calling them out? Is anybody calling these people out?
Yeah, no, they are. It's just that it doesn't go anywhere. So reporters call them out, and the AGs have actually made that part of lawsuits. Mike, that your point is well taken, right? Like, why isn't anyone calling them out? They are trying. It's just that I will say that this administration is particularly good at obfuscation, delaying, and deflecting, right? So they, Trump's principle, it'll be an immutable law at some point that's put in philosophers' books, is that, flood the zone, flood the zone, flood the zone, flood the zone, and they'll only be able to do half measures against the 943 things that are wrong going on. So you're right. Like, why aren't we speaking? Well, we are. It's just one of 943 things, and so they are prioritizing.
Yeah, and I think that, I'll end with this. Then I would add to the list a red line for all of us watching this in our country is that you cannot have law enforcement engaging with any citizen or non-citizen or human being on the street of this country without a body cam. It's a red line, period.
Well, aren't all those police working for the mayor? I mean, every municipality, the mayor's the boss of the police force, right? I mean, when's the last time anybody stormed the Bastille on any of, like Hoffman Estates to Schaumburg, where I live? I mean, we were beating the doors down back when the ceasefire thing was going on. And now this is happening. The mayors seem to be, everybody just doesn't pay attention to the mayors. The mayor is responsible for his police force. He's the boss.
Mhm.
We got to go after these mayors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting. So it's like it's a two-level advocacy, right? You advocate for communicating with the mayors, and then the mayors back into, and Marie can back up me on this, is that with the supremacy clause, that the federal government decides how to partake in this. And unfortunately, these ICE agents are not individuals that are local police officers. They're ICE agents that are taking orders from the federal government and provided with uniforms and provided with tools from the federal government. What the mayor can do, is what a lot of mayors have done around the country, which is to file a lawsuit or to say that there are certain rules that they have to follow if they're within the jurisdiction of the state. We go back to the supremacy clause again, that the federal government has its own rules and it supersedes. However, when you have a red line that violates the Constitution, local or federal, and the red line is something that we recognize in that way, then we can advocate at both levels, right? And the supremacy clause does not protect loss of life for something like this.
It doesn't protect on the civic side, right? Like, you can sue everybody, let's say even though in the state of Illinois, we have a law that says that, we should not be collaborating. Other law enforcement shouldn't be collaborating with ICE, right? We know that in Illinois, we've created that law. That said, there is the supremacy of the federal law that says you should, which is still loosey-goosey for me. Like, I don't even agree with that. But the reality is that doesn't stop us from suing. And so we have sued. There are lawsuits against the federal government in many states, including Illinois, against ICE as an entity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great discussion so far, folks. And if you want to join the conversation, the number to call in, 773-763-9278. And at this point, I would like also to point out that Marie finished her segment in 15 minutes. So did Maaria. Mm-hmm. We're getting good at this, folks. We are finally getting our game in place.
Yeah, I'm not going to roll right through Maaria's again. Oh my gosh, I felt so horribly.
Oh no, it's all good. No, such important information.
Maaria's just kind.
Such important information.
As long as we are talking about issues and like what you guys have been saying, advocacy does move the needle. Okay, we should not give up hope. Speaking of that, on the 29th, we have our first fundraiser to support the show. And Mike, thank you so much. Mike is sponsoring 10 tables, Maaria.
Oh, incredible.
Mike Patino.
Wow.
And Chris is getting on an airplane for us, which she doesn't like doing. So that is a big deal. That deserves a round of applause too.
Yes, she is.
So we got about a week to put this thing to bed, folks. So do please bring in your family, bring in your friends. It's not so much about raising money as about getting together as a group, getting to know each other in person also.
Right.
Cook County Treasurer Maaria Pappas is going to be there, and about 3 mayors have confirmed that they are going to be there from local municipalities. The Will County Speaker of the House is going to be there. And so we're going to have some pretty connected people in the audience over there. So please do come, and you can find information about tickets on our website, tlsradio.com. And it is going to be on the 29th of July in the evening at the Bolingbrook Community Center from 6:30 to 9:30. Of course, Maaria is going to be there. Marie is going to be there. I will try to hide in the background somewhere because we got all these powerful people coming. Okay. But again, jokes aside, very important, folks, to support independent media. We're going to have a panel discussion on that day. It's not just going to be talks, but we want to hear from the audience. We want to hear from you as to the importance of keeping independent media alive. A lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, but hey, why should we support you? Why don't you take advertising? Once we start taking corporate advertising, we lose our independence. Now, we do want to have some people to come in and help us with marketing to local businesses. And Marie, thank you so much for putting it up on your LinkedIn and all. Have had like 12 people reach out so far.
It's great, right? Everybody's excited about us growing, and we are growing, and so we do need support. And can I just do a quick delineation between corporate advertising and local advertisers so that everybody understands we're not anti-business? And I don't mean that in a political way. I mean that in, look, we are going to be taking advertising from local and regional advertisers. That is true. But we are also selective about which corporations we do business with, right? That we're not going to take Amazon advertising. I hate to tell everybody, like, we're not going to take, Google advertising. We're not going to take data center. We're not going to crypto. We're not going to take any of that. But we do want to be supportive of helping small businesses and regional and mid-sized businesses doing all the great things that they do, because they're job providers, right? And they help all of us. They help Chris and Mike in their endeavors, and Maaria and Mohammed in their endeavors. And so it's really important to support local businesses. And that's why we made a collective team decision, like, hey, let's do the right thing. Let's support those businesses who are supporting us back, the community, and not support the folks that are doing things that are either toxic, or they're major polluters, or they're corrupt, or they're saying unions can't exist and all of those crazy things. So let's support the right people. So we are, folks, just to be clear, I wanted to delineate between those two things.
Right. Can I just pop in real quick?
Sure.
I just want to just like 10 seconds. Most people don't know, but on average over like 10, 20 years, 50% of employed people are from small businesses and medium businesses, also known as local businesses. So when they tell you that it's corporations that provide the jobs, they're freaking lying to you. 50% of the jobs come from your local small businesses and medium-sized businesses, and they stay local or regional or sometimes statewide, kind of depends. But I just had to throw that out there because people believe that like 90% of workers are working for these big nationwide corporations or international corporations. It's not. 50% are local businesses. So FYI of the day, peeps.
No, she's so right. So Chris, I just wanted to tag on and support that point, and stretch it out a little bit, is that, and also understand not only 50% of all employees come from small and local businesses, 52% of our GDP, so all the money that is made in this great country, comes from small businesses. So when corporations say they're the only thing, it's not.
Right. And I saw this a few years ago. Every dollar spent locally actually generates something like $7 extra in spreading through the economy, right? And so keep your money local. You want to make a change, then stop spending at the big box stores, the big grocery stores if you can. Go local as much as you can. As much as you can, go local. Yep.
Yep, and go local and come to our fundraising dinner.
Yeah.
Don't forget about that part of it.
Local. That's a local thing.
That's a
very
very
local.
local thing. But here's the thing, folks. We've been doing this for 3 years now, and we have not missed a single show in 3 years. That is the kind of commitment that we have made every Sunday morning, getting up and it's not just the 2 hours that we spend on the radio over here. It takes about 10 to 15 hours to put the show together and then put it on our social media and all of those things. So there's a lot of back end work involved. Thank you to Brendan Bond, who is doing some of the back end work for us and getting the show on Spotify and Apple Podcast and all that. Thank you, Brendan. Brendan is going to be there also.
Yeah.
Miz came up with a great idea, Marie. He called me yesterday. We had a long talk.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, we should have a local business sponsor a segment like the District Watch.
Oh, sure.
Very
And,
nice.
Sponsor a segment like the Person of the Week segment.
Yeah.
So they are getting more and more involved with the concept of keeping independent media alive. So even though, folks, we are on WCPT does not sponsor the show. Let me make it perfectly clear. We are independent producers, so we buy the time from WCPT and produce our own show. And as long as we are following the FCC regulations and not using any F-bombs on the air, we are cool. And we can talk about any subject. And we have been talking.
Mike and I have been so good. Haven't we, Mike? Like we've not won
You don't know how hard it is for me.
Yeah. So in 3 years, we have had like one complaint from a person of the week who had called in from New York, and she was in another zone altogether. And we didn't go ahead and vet her out before we let her on the air. That was the only complaint that we have had, not from any of our hosts, but from a guest who called in on the show. We got about how many minutes to go now? We got about 4 minutes to finish off the show today. And I really want to appreciate a couple of sponsors for the dinner. Al Bawadi Grill is going to be providing us with dinner, folks.
Delicious.
Yep, delicious food. And also one of the persons of the week that we had, Everything Delicious is her restaurant. And it's in Joliet, actually, Carpentersville, kind of, not the Carpentersville, Joliet, I would say. And she is going to be bringing in some of her goodies. Thank you so much. We're going to have Bill Shepard and the Rockaholics come and perform. Bill just texted me that he has slipped a disc.
Oh no.
And he will not be able to come. He was very apologetic that please, I will make it up to you, Muhammad. That's what he says. So maybe when we do another fundraising dinner, Bill will be back. But it is going to be a wonderful evening, a wonderful night, July 29th. Please don't forget, at the Bolingbrook Community Center. Do let us know if you're coming in, because we have to have a head count to have the dinner for everybody, okay? Because if you show up and there's no food for you, don't blame me, okay?
Can we, Mohammed, can we know a little bit about the panel setup too? Maybe the audience wants to hear about what will be discussed.
Well, I'm putting together that, Maaria. I did get your message on that. So I would love, I would love for you and Marie to actually do the panel and moderate it. Because you guys know what we are doing. You've been part of the show for a long time. Instead of bringing in a candidate who's running for office to be the moderator, they can be a panelist. Okay. So the Plainfield mayor is going to be there. Of course, Mary Basta, the Bolingbrook mayor, is going to be there. The Orland Park mayor is going to be there. We've got a mayoral candidate also coming in. So quite a few people. And of course, Maria Papas would be there. And we'll have just an open conversation. And all of the things are going to be live on Facebook also.
Great.
So we will be having the evening live on Facebook. There are 2 minutes to go, folks. So I started off my rant with our immigration system and how broken it is, and how we, all of us, are the children of immigrants, except for Native Americans over here. And with due apologies to Columbus. Columbus, sir, you did not find India, okay? And the people over here were not Indians, okay? There were indigenous people who have been over here. Murray, in the South Asia Institute program that I went to yesterday,
Yeah.
there is a lady who said that there is an India Institute or something like that in Lombard. And
I think I have seen that storefront. I've never gone in it. I've
Yep.
seen it though.
And she said that they are tracking the real Indians, like people like me, my ilk, and their history in America.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying that the first person that they have identified historically came here in 1746
Wow. From India.
from India.
Wow.
From India.
How he came, his name is,
Would they, was he part of an exploration group or something? Because they would still be,
I don't know. I mean, his name was
exploring at that
Tony.
point.
His Americanized name became Tony's, and she said, "Go to the museum and check out how long
Fascinating. Yeah.
Indians
That's
have
incredible.
been here in America." And when I say Indians, of course, at that time there was no Pakistan till 1948 when the independence happened for the Indian territories. So the Indian subcontinent, let us put it that way. So yeah, we've been here for a long time, folks. Okay, we didn't just come off the boat recently. And every single one of us have immigrants from some country or the other when we came over here. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, signing off for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And do tune in again every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WCPT. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Maaria. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Demi, for joining the conversation today. This is Mohammed Faheem signing off for the Lightning Strike on WCPT 8:20 a.m.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.